Okay, so let's do the roll call.
Chair Schwaki,
Approve.
Vice Chair Padron,
Approve.
Commissioner Fleming,
Approve.
Commissioner Kazor,
Approve.
Commissioner LaForce,
I approve.
Commissioner Machado.
Approve. Okay, well, motion passes. Minutes are approved. Okay, next item is presentation on social and emotional. And I believe we have a member
This
from the
meeting is
public
being
who's gonna,
recorded.
talk about this and give us a presentation. Chris, is that right?
Yes. Indy Rishi Singh is here, and I just promoted him to a panelist, and you can start when you're ready.
Hey everyone, hope you're all well. I guess I'll start. Whoa, what's going on here? Oh my gosh, you guys see yourselves. I don't think you want to see that.
Yeah, so.
There you are.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I would first start with, let's start with this real quick. So I started with that because I feel, we're all under a lot of stress and anxiety these days. It's a really challenging time for all of us, and I can't explain how powerful music has been for me in my resilience. My partner is a nurse, a pediatric ICU nurse here in Oakland at UCSF, and she will also attest to how it's been really challenging for children at the moment. And obviously, this presentation is also a discussion, but I do want to give a preface there really quickly. So recently, I also have been selected as Commissioner of Human Relations. So I have also responsibility now to improve the human relations we have in our city and beyond our city. It's generational in my mind. How what we teach our children, they become adults and they transcend that. But I also would love to share how we have this really important moment right now where if we lean in, we can support the mental and not just the mental and emotional health, but those are so intrinsically connected to physical health. And as we know, there's some simple things we could do that are not religious or spiritual or anything at all, but we can lean into it. But this discussion, I really want to start to curb it towards what we can come up with to support our community, and maybe even be a beacon for other communities, not just in the Bay Area, but beyond the Bay Area, of what we can do to support not just those folks who can afford social emotional wellness workshops and play shops, or they go to schools that have it, but also to the folks who don't have it in our communities, or maybe generationally have not had the opportunity to learn those things. But before I do that, I did come up with an idea. I wanted to show you guys a vision so that we can have this discussion it could be more clear, so you guys can see what I've been kind of deliberating and having conversations, not just with young people, but with senior citizens in our community, with young people in the community, with adults in our community. I've just, on my walks around the neighborhood, I've just been having talks with people, literally face to face, and asking them, what do they want? What do they need? What do they need also to feel safe if there was outdoor events or some sort of gatherings that were promoting this. So can I share my screen? Yes, I can. It is right here. Okay, good. So I hope you guys can see this. You guys all see that? Cool.
Yes.
So, obviously I am I'm a big safety person. I don't look like it. I look like I'm a freewheeling, person. But I believe one of my teachers was a CIA agent who really broke me down. He said, you always got to be prepared and then act. Right? And that way you have fun. So I really want to acknowledge that in order to do anything like this, we do have to remember that safety first, right? We have to make sure if we do any sort of event that we are taking the precautions. And nowadays, the idea of small versus large gathering is kind of in the air. But more importantly than anything, I think Chris and I kind of quickly thought about this. One of our conversation was, hey, let's make sure everybody's moving, right? So if we do any sort of gathering, let's not let anybody get into a place where they're congregating in one space, but let's create some sort of thing that's moving and encourages movement, and so we can always mitigate any risk that way. But also, I think throughout this engagement, I just got back from Hawaii. on a vacation, and when I was out there, there was outdoor events happening, and I noticed some of the speakers, and Hawaii's, by the way, way more restrictive than we are. The governor's like he said CDC can say whatever they want. We're gonna stay with the precautions, right? But they were okay with gatherings where the announcer kept reminding people to keep their masks on, to keep socially distant, to take precautions. So that can be a part of it, to keeping the container safe. Okay, so here's the vision I wanted to show you guys. I work with kids. I'm a big person with animation and creativity. That's the only way and not just kids, teenagers these days. You have to be super creative to keep people's attention, even adults, I guess, right? And so here you can see, I took an overview picture of Cerrito Vista Park, and I got a lot of recommendation that this park would be a really good idea. A lot of people in the community, they were sharing with me that we would love to, come to this event if it was at Cerrito Vista, because it's such a big park and it has a good view. And you can see I kind of like created these little pictures and shared, there's, could be a possibly area with some music playing, and that's just, maybe different cultural music, maybe some fire prevention perspective, right? So maybe some of the fire department can show up and share share important things that we need to be paying attention to. Maybe there's another section where, kids are playing kickball with adults. Maybe there's another section registering voters. Maybe, I can't help I'm going to bring this up during the human relations meeting next week, but I keep hearing from all the meetings that we don't ever have a community place to gather and talk about what's going on in our community. It's really hard for us to, create, I don't know, civic engagement that is productive, right? It seems like everybody keeps not feeling like they're not heard or acknowledged. Maybe this also might be a place for some of that acknowledgement. But I brought up this day. It's Loving Day. We, Buddy and I, two of the commissioners, have been given the responsibility to come up with an event for Loving Day, which is on June 12th. This might be an experiment that we can do. I'm going to throw that out there for you guys. But we would like to do it every month. But Loving Day is right there. And what a great day to dissolve racial tensions by celebrating interracial marriage, right? So I don't know if you guys know, but this was the landmark decision that allowed interracial marriage in America, which was not allowed. I mean, this is our history, right? But it's important that we can celebrate interracial, celebrate intercultural awareness. I just thought maybe we can engage the civic theater if they want to. If anybody in the community wants to do something and share the story and the history, people can share this. There could be different culturally diverse music. That's an idea. Maybe we can support some musicians in our community. Albany did a thing, I think a couple months ago, where they had different houses hosted musicians in front of their houses throughout the neighborhood. Maybe we could do that, but in this space, and musicians from the neighborhood can come in. Fire prevention, I'm all about it. I have a backyard that needs a lot of support it goes up into the preserve, the nature preserve. There's a mess in there for fire prevention. So we need to start talking about that ASAP so we don't have any issues with that. Dancing, movement exercises, maybe different cultural dances. We have the Ohlone folks. Maybe we can honor them with the dance, any other Asian, Indian, any other Mexican, whatever dances. Voting. I think that's super important to get people more engaged. So if people are just walking by this festival, this gathering might be going on, they might just be neighbors walking through, and they come in, and they're like, oh my God, I need to get more involved in the local governance. And then, yeah, just sports or whatever. I'm a big sports, but we could have, celebrating different sports or maybe honoring different clubs, or maybe there's any summer camps or anything they might want to, maybe promote at this event, or maybe want to share what they're doing with the community. They can maybe there's some sort of relationship. Okay, so I'm gonna jump out of this, and let's kind of create a conversation. So I would love to hear from you guys. What are you guys thinking about this? What are your ideas, thoughts? What are your apprehensions? What are your doubts? Let's talk about it.
So I guess I have a question.
Sure.
So are you organizing and you're organizing an event on June 12th, or it's already kind of in the books for the city?
It's not in the books of the city. I mean, we've been tasked with responsibility to put on an event for June 12th for Loving Day. Now that event could be virtual, it could be in person. I mean, obviously with your guys' permission, it would make it possible for us to do a small gathering that is throughout the day, that is interspersed throughout the day for the 12th. If we don't get your permission, I don't think we can do anything officially with the city, but I still think we should do something to celebrate Loving Day.
But your commission, your other commission, you're not doing it with them. You're asking us whether we give you the blessing or not.
Well, I mean, it's on the
Or the
agenda.
recommendation.
We're,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
next,
for the recommendation, right?
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Actually, not permission so much, but more a high five. Like I
Right.
think.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Um. Do any of the commissioners have any questions?
I see a hand up with Kathy.
Yeah, hi.
Oh yes,
Andy.
Kathy. Yeah.
Just a couple questions. So if, well, first I would say that since we're advisory in nature, I don't think that we can either, we can advise and approve something to advise in an advisory capacity, but I don't believe that this commission has the ability to make it happen, so to speak. And I would ask staff, A, is that true? And then B, if we are just recommending, what would be the next step to have it codified and have this activity partnered with the city or with the other commission, the Human Relations Commission?
Excellent questions. And let me also recommend too that this is something that this is also planting the seeds for post June 15th, future possible engagements for social emotional health, cultural awareness, civic engagement, you name it. Like, so July going forward, it might be a lot easier too.
So Chris, can you answer or kind of weigh in on Kathy's question?
Yeah. I can weigh in, and
Okay.
this has been my favorite part of the job, is being the COVID police for the past year. So I would say that prior to June 15th, the guidance for events is more restrictive than what they're talking about after June 15th. In general, there could be no more than 50 people. And so therefore, there could be no more than 50 people if you are not requiring vaccination status. And right now in the city, at least as an organization, we are not verifying whether or not people are vaccinated or not. So, there are some limitations on what kind of gatherings can occur and events. And more than likely to follow the guidance, it would have to be more of a kind of like a invitation, like a guest list type of situation, as opposed, because we just put out the call that there's something going on, something really cool going on at Cerrito Vista Park on the 12th. There's a good possibility that a whole bunch of people could show up, and then we would not be in compliance with the current state guidelines for the orange tier. So probably not what you wanted to hear right now, but that is what our interpretation of events in the orange tier is right now.
Okay. But aside from that, I mean, wouldn't there be other sort of requirements that the city would have for, I mean, can anybody just go and just organize, like a 4th of July event at any time, any day?
I would, yes, I would say that an event of this scale, I don't see it happening in just a little over 2 weeks from now. Unfortunately, I mean, especially because it's so important and you want to do it right.
Right.
I don't see that. I think smaller things could be organized, where people sign up for it,
right.
And things like that. But yeah, something of this scale, I'm not sure that it could be done by June 12th.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of like I'm always like, the gears are always churning. We also have Juneteenth on the 19th. So I wonder if there's a way to lump up, those two celebrations at the end of the month, with something at the end of the month that might be more, inclusive and understanding of the more open restrictions, right?
There will be more open restrictions, but I maybe what I mentioned earlier in the meeting is that a lot of the loosened restrictions rely on obtaining people's vaccination status. Now, certainly, but there is a little bit of, if someone is unvaccinated, they have to wear a mask if they can't maintain social distance, for example. So, but there are, other than that, there's not really restrictions on, unless it's a mega event.
Right.
So, but again, I would say that, we've done special events here for years, and the timing, I feel like the amount of work and effort that would have to go into pulling off something like this by June 19th, I would be dubious. If I had to pull it off, I would be.
I lived in Manhattan for 7 years and produced events out there. totally get the hustle, and I think at least from our perspective, I think it's worth doing even the smallest thing for the community, just because the community is suffering, and at least as I'm walking around talking to people, they want to connect with their neighbors. They want to do something that's meaningful, and so and I think everybody's exhausted of Zoom. So I think just from that standpoint, but of course safety first, and we have to acknowledge those things. It's really important. But at least for human relations, that's definitely something that we're going to keep nudging, is that we find ways to connect with each other in a more meaningful and productive way. I think that's very important.
And we certainly have a lot of resources that I can hook you up with in terms of protocols and waivers and all that stuff that's currently required, and unclear what's going to be required after June 15th, other than vaccination status, I guess, at this point.
And on top of that, also I'd love to ask the rest of the committee is also what do you guys have any other ideas or components you'd like to see in this, or is anything where we can that this can also support the Parks and Rec and what the initiatives and the projects you guys are doing? But Jen, go ahead. I would love to hear from you.
Oh, thank you. Actually, I think Commissioner Codron had her.
Oh, I couldn't see your hand was darker, but no disrespect, it was like hidden in the corner.
No, it's okay. I was just concerned about when Chris was talking about the timing of it, and also the cost, and there's a setup and there's a cleanup, and how has all that been factored in and with our budget and everything. And I don't know who would be paying for that. Would the city be paying for that?
If the city wants to pay for it, but I have no problem if it's out of my pocket, because I want people to be healthy and happy. So I'll take it out of my pocket. But if the city wants to contribute on something positive that's going to improve community wellness, it's good. It's good.
Okay. Well, I was just that was my concern about how we're going to schedule this before June 15th, and all of the details, have they all been looked at? The cost, the setup, the scheduling. Is there conflict with other possible activities that are happening at that park, or contingencies and so forth? That was my question.
Thank you, Avis.
And I have a similar question to others that have been asked, and this is I think for Chris, you just mentioned being able to share information about waivers and requirements, and I wonder if that's something that you could share with the full commission as a newer member, because I'm wondering too is yes, and just planning. I agree that for an event at this scale, having it by the end of June, it seems ambitious to me. But if it were non-COVID times, Chris, it'd be helpful just to understand too what if a citizen comes forward with wanting to put on an event and having it be, city property involving city staff. Just what are the loose steps and requirements to, and how far how detailed does planning need to get to be approved, et cetera? That'd be helpful to understand.
Yeah,
and I should probably just clarify, what I was talking about in terms of, we definitely have like sample protocols and requirements for these kind of smaller type of events that have been going on. Something on this scale, we don't have anything at least ready made. But for events in general, certainly we can have that discussion in the future.
Excellent.
Yeah, Avis, did you have any? You still have your raised hand. Did you have anything more? No. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that I was just going to say, in wherever this goes, I mean, I think there needs to be more information and more detail of, I mean, because, yeah, just I know like events like the 4th of July, and this, I don't know if it would be that scale, but it takes a lot of effort and a lot of details, sort of coordination of the different things, and I think that that knowing that and understanding that, and maybe having a more detailed plan, and maybe with more time you can kind of develop that. But I guess a question for Chris is, so can any sort of private citizen just say, I want to rent Cerrito Vista and have an event? Is that I mean, I guess CCYB does that with baseball.
Well, anyone that's renting facilities right now agrees to abide by the city's protocols and requirements as part of the rental process. And currently, in the orange tier, so for example, for
Yeah, no, I get that. The COVID thing. I get the COVID, but regardless of the COVID thing, anybody can essentially do that. I'm just asking.
Anybody can make a proposal. I mean, I will be honest with you that, there's been a number of organizations over the years that want to use Cerrito Vista Park, but because Cerrito Vista Park is typically so impacted by the 4th of July event, we typically do not, and that's not the case this year, so I'm not talking about this year. But typically the 4th of July is, has such a heavy impact on the field, and the mitigations and repairs that we do after it are, not cheap. So we typically don't approve in normal circumstances, other large scale events at Cerrito Vista Park. But there's all kinds so it just really depends on the event. People can get a street closure permit and have an event on the street. People can rent some of our larger picnic sites and have events there. They can rent our facilities and have events inside there. A big scale event requires permits from police, from planning, and requires a level of organization. You have to think about bathrooms. If you're having food, there's a number of regulations that go along with that. The cleanup, the typical trash receptacles on the field, aren't sufficient for large events, so you have to work out a trash and recycling plan. So there's a number of not so easy details that I've worked on for large scale events.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I would my kind of recommendation would be to maybe it's a street party. Maybe you can do something like that. Yeah. And start small and build from there. And then you could maybe do it on Loving Day, on that day, on the 12th. Your block.
Sure. If you guys hear the music playing from Navalier out towards the city up on the hill, you guys know where to come.
I think I live pretty close to you.
We do have a drum circle music jam every couple. We have one on Monday night for Memorial Day. So if you hear even that, listen out for us in the evening. Yeah, I mean that sounds good. I mean, even when we were proposing this thing in Cerrito Vista Park, I actually don't envision many people coming, personally, just because people are so apprehensive. But really, more it's about, maybe people hear it and they come through, and there's like small groups coming through, or they're driving by and they're like, "Hey, what's going on? Oh, this is a city. This is El Cerrito doing something for their citizen. Oh my gosh, this is great." I envision it very small at first, anyways. And I would prefer it that way, because in my opinion, we kind of need that at the moment. We need more small, engaging activities rather than large, big parties. But thank you. I really appreciate all you guys, and thank you also, Avis, for bringing that up, and Jen, because it'll be nice to have the protocols and have all those papers and understand, how we can fill those things out, and just creates more clarity for that. And also in this conversation too, now I know who I should reach out to in terms of like vendors and offerings, and even speaking to the fire chief, and if he would be interested. I mean, these are things that I definitely want to start getting ready and preparing for something like this. So
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, so I don't think we need to do action on this. So
You could give a high five, right?
yeah, high five.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes, sorry.
I just want to say, Indy, thanks for bringing this forward, because I agree with you. Having two small children in my family, and we need to connect, even if it's in a limited way in small numbers. I really appreciate your enthusiasm and in the spirit of this event. And I could see, in the future, our commission partnering with Human Relations Commission on something like this, and I think it's a great idea. So thank you for bringing it to the commission.
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that. And sending a lot of love to your kids too. I hope they're practicing resilience. And thank you guys. You guys too. All right, make sure you guys sleep well, okay? Everybody, you better be sleeping. Even the folks listening and tuning in, all right? We can't ever resolve things unless we're sleeping well. So sleep well.
Okay. Great. Norm, were you going to say something? No. Okay. You showed it it's on the screen. Okay.
Norm, I love your last name, by the way. That's an awesome last name.
All right. Awesome.
Bye, guys.
Let's move on. Thank you, Indy. Let's move on to the next item.
This meeting is being recorded.
The proposed